Okay, let's forget about spreadsheets and complicated code for a second. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats. We're going to treat data analytics not as some dry, technical thing, but as a series of really fascinating mysteries. So come on, let's open up this casebook and see how a few simple clues, hidden in data, can solve some seriously big puzzles.
You know, we've all done this, right? You fill up an online cart, you're so close to the finish line, and then you just click away. For businesses, this is a huge, huge mystery. But the answer, it's usually hiding in plain sight, just waiting for a data detective to come along and find the clues.
And that's the big idea for today. A data detective isn't just staring at numbers. Nope. They're looking for clues. They ask questions, they hunt for patterns, and they piece together a story that actually solves a real-world problem. It makes the whole thing feel less like math homework and more like, well, a real investigation. All right, for our first set of cases, we are cracking the people code. Because let's be honest, behind almost every business mystery, whether it's why sales are down or why nobody's using your app, there's a question about people. What do we really want? Let's find out.
So, our first case file is from a company called Streamtown, a video app for both kids and adults. And they had a major problem. People would start watching videos, but almost never finish them. Poof! Their audience was just vanishing midstream. And the company was totally clueless as to why.
Well, the data detectives got on the case, and the clues pointed to something pretty surprising. It turns out Streamtown didn't have one audience, they had two. Totally different ones. You had kids on their phones who wanted short, silly, quick-hit content. And then you had adults on their TVs looking for longer, more serious videos. The company was trying to feed everyone the same meal, and nobody was happy. So when Streamtown actually knew who was watching and what they wanted, the fix was obvious, right? They had to tailor the experience. Shorter videos for the phone app and the longer stuff for the TV app. The data let them stop guessing and actually start giving each group what they were looking for. Okay, let's circle back to that mystery we kicked things off with, the abandoned shopping cart. This brings us to the case of Brightmart, an online store that was losing a ton of money at the very last second. So they put on their detective hats and started following the digital breadcrumbs. And just like at Streamtown, the detectives found there wasn't one single bad guy. There were three. First, you had the bargain hunters, who were totally on board until, bam, a surprise shipping fee showed up. Then there were the busy adults who needed their stuff like yesterday and bailed when they saw a long delivery time. And finally, you had people on their phones who just got fed up with a checkout page that was a nightmare to use on a small screen. The big lesson here is all about friction, those little annoying points that make you just give up. The data showed Brightmart exactly where their customers were getting stuck. By fixing their mobile checkout and being upfront about shipping, they smoothed out the whole journey. Case closed. Now, data isn't just about understanding customers on the outside. It is an amazing tool for finding those hidden hiccups inside a company. You know, the glitch in the machine that can cause massive headaches if you don't find it. Our next case comes from the Iron Peak factory. These guys were in crisis mode. Shipments were always late and they were about to lose their biggest customers. Everybody was working their tails off, so where was the problem? The whole operation felt like a total black box. The data detectives followed this really elegant four-step process. First, they just clearly defined the problem. Missed deadlines. Simple. Second, they went clue hunting, digging through machine logs and worker notes. And that led them straight to step 3, finding the source. And get this, it wasn't some huge company-wide issue, it was one single faulty machine. Which made step 4, the fix, totally clear. Repair that machine and slap some sensors on it so this never happens again. Okay, here's another hidden hiccup that I think we can all relate to. That feeling of waiting forever at the doctor's office. At Care First Clinic, patients were getting really frustrated, and the staff was totally stressed out. The mystery was why the schedule always seemed to completely fall apart, especially in the morning. So, by looking at patterns in how long appointments actually took and when patients showed up, the clinic's detectives found a super simple clue. Their mornings were just massively overbooked. It was creating this huge bottleneck before the day even really got started. So they just changed the schedule, spread things out a bit, and added an extra nurse during those peak hours. And the result? It was incredible. Wait times just plummeted, solving the puzzle and making everyone's day a whole lot better. All right, this brings us to what might be the most powerful use of data detective work: prevention. This is about using data not just to solve mysteries that have already happened, but to spot trouble on the horizon, to build an early warning system so you can act before something becomes a full-blown crisis. And here's a really powerful example of that. Northview School wanted to solve a critical mystery. How can we help students before they start to really fall behind? They needed a way to spot those first subtle signs that a student might be struggling. So their detectives started looking for patterns by connecting different clues. See, any one of these things by itself might not be a big deal. But when they saw a student who was frequently absent, and whose grades were suddenly dropping, and who wasn't doing their online homework, well, that combination of clues created a clear pattern. That was the early warning sign they were looking for.
And this was a total game changer. This system let teachers step in with support way earlier. They weren't waiting around for a failed test at the end of the semester. They were acting on the very first signs of trouble. They were helping students before a small stumble could become a major fall.
For our final case, we're shifting gears from the classroom to the high-stakes world of finance. Riverbank was in a constant cat-and-mouse game with fraudsters, trying to steal from their customers. The criminals were getting smarter, and the bank needed a faster, better way to spot sketchy activity. So their data detectives built a system that was constantly on the lookout for anomalies. Patterns that just broke from a customer's normal behavior, like a weird purchase late at night or a withdrawal from a strange city. This system became their early warning signal. And the impact, get this, a staggering 75% drop in fraud. That one number just shows you the massive real-world power of spotting these patterns early. So, after cracking all these cases, from online stores to factories to schools, what's the big takeaway from our investigation today? It's actually pretty simple. This way of thinking isn't just for experts. The detective can be you. Because when you boil it all down, being a data detective is really just a mindset. It starts with just being curious and asking questions. And instead of guessing, you look for actual patterns, for real clues. But here's the most important part. You turn what you find into action. It's a process that can solve mysteries of any size, in pretty much any field. And ultimately, that's what we've really seen today, isn't it? Data isn't just a jumble of numbers on a screen. It's a tool. It's a lens that helps us see the world a little more clearly. It's the raw material you use to find the hidden story behind the problem, so you can finally understand what's really going on. So I'll leave you with this one final thought. Whether it's something at your job, in your community, or maybe just a nagging question you've always had, what's one mystery out there that's just waiting for a data detective like you to come along and start looking for clues?